Steel City Sports back here. So today we're doing my All-Star ballot, the Steel City Sports All-Star ballot. So keep that in mind. This is my ballot. This has nothing to do with predictions or what the fan vote is going to look like. This is just if I was controlling the ballot, these are the people that would make the All-Star team in the NBA. So you get 12 players on each side, East-West. And I don't remember exactly the year that they changed the criteria from position to just front court and back court. But I do like that rule change. We're going to talk about all that. I know we haven't done an NBA video in a while, but I do plan on making more NBA content on this channel. And it might not seem like it, but I love the NBA just as much as I love the NFL. It might not seem like that because we post majority NFL on this page, but that mostly has to do with, Pittsburgh doesn't have an NBA town, team, so we do talk a lot of Steelers on here, and I've been going hard with the playoffs, but especially when the NFL season does come to an end, I do plan on doing a lot more NBA-related content on this channel, so let's get into the All-Stars. Starting off with the Eastern Conference starters, for our backcourt, I have Damian Lillard and Donovan Mitchell. I think are both very much so deserving to be All-Stars this year. It's really tough this year, I think, to pick the starters. I think there's about 5 different guys you could argue to be starting in the backcourt for the East this year between the 2 guys that I already picked. Jalen Brunson, of course, has been great. Tyrese Maxey, Trae Young. There's a lot of really good guards in the East, but these ultimately are the 2 I settled on. For Dame, it just comes down to the simple fact he's on a 2-seeded team. I think for All-Star voting, now I didn't make it this way, but for All-Star voting, usually wins matter. If you're on a shitty team, it seems like you are kind of snubbed when it comes to being an All-Star. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know, but that's just usually how it seems to be year in, year out. I remember Devin Booker for a long time when the Suns were trash. He never made an All-Star team because he didn't win games. So for me, personally, I do take winning into account whenever you're an All-Star, and we're going to talk about that more with some other guys, but Dame definitely being on a 2-seeded team, him and Giannis being one of the most formidable duos, definitely right now, I think could go on to be one of the best duos of this generation, just for the talent. I think that their play styles complement each other perfectly. You have Giannis, who's the most dominant, unstoppable interior force in the league, to go with Damian Lillard's production and shot creation on the perimeter. And then Donovan Mitchell has been phenomenal this year. I do have all their stats written down, but I'm not going to read that out because I just think it would be too redundant. You already know all these guys have phenomenal stats. But Donovan Mitchell is on the 4-seeded Cavs, so they're winning games, especially I do take this one to be pretty impressive for the Cavs because it wasn't that long ago. They were actually struggling. They were the 10th seed, I want to say, for a little while. They got off to a really slow start, and I really started to hear some buzz about how potentially Donovan Mitchell could be traded. We already know in Utah he was upset about not being on a big market team. Well, it looked like things could repeat themselves in Cleveland, especially if they're not very good. We know he's a New York native. He's been linked to the Knicks even before he got to the Cavs. So I was like, maybe this is the year things kind of blow up for the Cavs. But as of right now, they're turning things around. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Donovan Mitchell individually has been sensational this year. And I think, he's one of the more underrated players around the league. I don't know exactly why, but I never really hear Donovan Mitchell mentioned as a superstar, and I really think he's on the border of that tier. He is phenomenal. For our front court players, these are the uncontroversial ones. If you don't have these 3 in your starting ballot, I don't know what argument you could even put up. These guys are no-brainers. Jason Tatum, again, going back to the winning thing, they're on the 1 seed. They're the best team record-wise in the NBA. So that I think if you have a top 15 player in the NBA and you're the 1 seed, you automatically get a starter in the All-Star game, and the Celtics have that with Jason Tatum. I mean, he's clearly a top 10 player. I think in terms of his versatility, you can argue he is one of the top 5 players in the league just because he can really do it all on the floor. I mean, he is sensational. And I think, it's not going to happen this year just because there's so many other great arguments, but I feel like one of these years Tatum is eventually going to win an MVP just for how great he is, how efficient he is, and for how much he provides. The fact that the Celtics are always a competent team and always making deep playoff runs, it's because they have Jason Tatum. He is sensational. Giannis, again, shouldn't surprise anybody. I think he's actually having kind of an under-the-radar year because every time I see NBA.com release their MVP ladder, I never see Giannis in the top three this year. I mean, a couple times, but it's usually Embiid, SGA, and Jokic. I never see Giannis crack the top three, which I think he should, because he's having a insane year, with over 30 points a game, over 10 rebounds, the incredible defense. We talked about the duo with Dame. They got off to a slow start, but once they figured it out, they have been one of the best teams in basketball. They bludgeoned the one-seeded Celtics was that a week ago? I know the Celtics were coming off. They were on the second night of a doubleheader, and they went to overtime the night before. But there is something to be said when you pulverize the one seed. It's extremely impressive, and I can't wait to see this team in the playoffs with Dame now. And then our last spot is Joel Embiid. My personal MVP favorite this year. I think he will go back-to-back as long as he doesn't get injured, and I think I saw something last night about if he misses 8 more games, he will be no longer eligible for MVP. So hopefully for his sake, he doesn't get hurt again, because I think he is the clear favorite for MVP this year, just for the simple fact that he's the scoring champion. He's averaging 35 points per game. He averaged 40 points per game for the month of December. He's been the most destructive force on both sides of the floor this year. I mean, specifically offense. I mean, the guy is literally unguardable. He's the perfect modern-day center. And the fact that he's kept the Sixers afloat after losing James Harden, if you go back and look at the history of the league, anytime a playoff-level team loses one of their top 2 players, they usually are not very good the next year. But for the simple fact that they have this monster in Joel Embiid, they didn't miss a beat. In some ways, they actually look even a little better. I mean, that might say more about Harden, but I think it says more about Embiid for how incredible he is. Won MVP last year, and I think he's even found a way to get a little better this year. I mean, he is having the best year of his career by far, clear all-star starter. Now we look at the bench for the East, starting in the backcourt with Tyrese Maxey and Jalen Brunson. So Maxey, we just talked about Embiid and how he's kept the Sixers afloat without Harden. Well, a big reason why he's been able to do that is Tyrese Maxey. I think is having an all-star level season, averaging 26 points per game and being unbelievably clutch, stepping up in massive moments alongside Embiid and having them at the 3. Like I said, this might sound annoying that I keep saying this, but I think that it's crazy to lose James Harden, a guy who led the league in assists last year and I know he is bad in the playoffs, but last year in the regular season, he was still a really good high-end player. And the fact that you lose that guy and didn't skip a beat is insanely impressive for Embiid and Maxey for what they've been able to do this year. Being the 3 seed, I think he deserves an all-star nod, averaging 26, and they are the 3 seed. And for Brunson, I mean, one of the worst takes I might have ever had when it comes to NBA, at least over the past couple of years, was my initial reaction to Jalen Brunson signing with the Knicks was I thought they gave him too much money. And now it looks like he's on one of the most team-friendly deals in the league, because you can argue Jalen Brunson's a top 5 point guard in the NBA. Just go look at how unbelievably efficient he is for what he provides to an NBA team. I mean, I know I said I wasn't going to read off stats, but for Jalen Brunson's averaging 26 points per game. Did you ever expect that? Even if you're a Knicks fan and your most wildest dreams of what Jalen Brunson would be for the Knicks, did you think he'd average 26? I mean, that is unbelievable for what he's done and just completely changed around this team. They were good before him. They made the playoffs in 2021, but 22 was not a good year for the Knicks. They took a massive step back, and it was looking like they were just going to fall back into irrelevancy. But he's come in here, and they've been phenomenal since he's been there. I think he's the perfect fit alongside Thibodeau. He really embodies just that do whatever to win mentality, and he's an incredible leader for this team. And I think he definitely deserves his first All-Star nod. I said last year he was the best player in the NBA to not make the All-Star team, so hopefully he does this year. And for the front court on the East bench, we have Jaylen Brown. Similar to what I said about Tatum, when you're the 1 seed, I think you should probably get multiple All-Stars. And that is a constant trend in the NBA. Anytime a team is the 1 seed, they usually at least get 2 All-Stars. Jaylen Brown has been an All-Star over the past couple years now, so no surprise for him making it. He's having a phenomenal season on both sides of the ball, and they're winning a lot, like I said. Paolo, in year 2, I have as an All-Star. I think it's very much deserved. I know the Magic have kind of fallen off now. They're down to the 8th seed, but not long ago they were like the 3 or 4 seed for like a good stretch of the NBA season. The Magic. They're one of the best young teams in the league. And when you're just ranking out young cores, the Magic might be at the top of that list. And you know why? Their crown jewel is obviously Paolo Banchero. I mean, he is sensational. And I even talked about this last year as a rookie. Like, he looked like a grown man. Like, the poise and already the skill that he had in his rookie season was incredible. I mean, like, insane. So to me, it's really not that surprising to see him making the All-Star team in just his second year. And then our last front court player for the East bench is Bam Adebayo. With the Heat being a 5 seed, I think he has a better, not to say he's a better player than Jimmy, because I don't have Jimmy Butler making the All-Star team. It's just, we've talked about this countless times on this channel. Jimmy Butler doesn't really give a shit about the regular season. He saves it all for the playoffs. And when the playoffs come around, he's a top 7, top 8 player in the NBA, but it's no knock on Jimmy that he didn't make the All-Star team for me. Bam, I think, just has better statistical numbers this year, averaging 22 and 10, and the Heat have really picked it up. They're the 5 seed now, so I think he just deserves to get in. Let's take a look at my reserves for the East. And for our last 2 spots, at the reserve spots in the Eastern Conference, I have Trae Young and Julius Randle. And I probably should have said this at the start of the Eastern Conference part. I just kind of forgot about it, but I did want to bring this up in the video. Is Tyrese Halliburton would 1,000% be a starter on my ballot had he not gotten injured. I just wanted to have that said. It's not that I forgot about him. It's just a simple fact. He's hurt, so that's why he's not here. But getting back to these reserves, Trae Young and Julius Randle, like, if you want to argue Trae Young should be higher than a reserve, like he should be on the bench instead of being a reserve, I wouldn't be too mad at that, because his stats individually are incredible. Averaging 27 points per game and 11 assists per game is awesome. But the fact that the Hawks are the 11th seed for me is really what dragged Trae Young down into being a reserve. He's still an all-star. Like, at the end of the day, your resume doesn't specify whether you were a starter on the bench or reserve. It's just going to say you were an all-star. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But just for this criteria, I think he should be on the reserves. And the Atlanta Hawks, we're probably going to have to make a separate video just talking all about the Hawks, because they have been one of the most disappointing teams for 2.5 years now. I mean, ever since reaching the Eastern Conference Final in 2021, they've done nothing but let me down. Like, I have always thought on paper they had one of the best rosters in the NBA, but they're always underachieving since making that conference final run. So yeah, like I said, we're probably going to make another video about that. But Trae, I think just numbers-wise, should be an all-star. And then Julius Randle gets the last spot. He's having a pretty good year as well, 24 points per game and 9 rebounds per game. You could probably make an argument for some other people, but I just think it's the last spot. I had to give it to somebody. The Knicks, they're currently the 7th seed, so you can maybe make an argument of, does a 7-seeded team deserve 2 All-Stars? But for the production he's had, he got off to a terrible start this year, but he's really turned it around. And I think the Knicks, they're not going to finish as the 7th seed, especially after getting OG Anunoby. I think they've been really good since getting him. As time goes on, I think the Knicks are going to be a lot higher than the 7th seed when the season ends. But that's my reserves for the East. Let's go over to the West now. Now looking at my Western Conference starters, it feels weird to say this, to not have LeBron James and Steph Curry not as all-star starters. But just given the criteria of this season, I think that these guys have better cases. So let's get into it here. In our backcourt, we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic. I think Luka's a pretty safe lock here, and so SGA. Like, I feel like the backcourt is pretty uncontroversial. SGA has been a top 3 MVP candidate all year long, and if Embiid actually ends up getting injured and is no longer eligible, SGA will win the MVP this year. So I think he should be a lock to be a starter. Having the Thunder as the 2 seed, now you can go all the way back to before the season started. My team to watch out for, I said every single year there's a young team that does a lot better than expected. I point back to the Grizzlies in 2021 whenever they went from an okay team, I think they were the 8th seed. They squeaked in through the play-in tournament, but then the very next year they blew up and went to like the 3 seed, like out of nowhere. Like no one had them being that good. And my team that I predicted to do that this year was the Thunder. Now, I didn't think they'd jump up. I think they finished as the 11th seed last year. I didn't think they'd go from 11 to 2. I thought they'd be more like 11 to 7. But they have exploded as one of the best teams in the NBA, and it's because SGA. I mean, they have a lot of other great pieces that do as well, but SGA is the reason why they're an elite team. And Luka, early on was my MVP favorite this year. I feel like they've kind of, I think his argument has tapered off just for the simple fact that the Mavericks are down to the 6th seed. You don't give MVPs to the 6th seed. I know Westbrook won it as a 6th seed, but I've already talked about that MVP. I don't want to get into that right now. But if you're on a 6th-seeded team, you don't win the MVP, or at least you shouldn't. And Luka, you can go, again, another couple videos I made at the start of the year where I was talking about the MVP race. Like Luka, to start off this year, you could have argued he was the best player in the NBA. For the first month of this season, I think Luka was the best player in the league. For the video game numbers he was averaging like a 40-point triple-double and had the Mavs as the 2 seed. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, especially whenever I predicted the Mavs, I can't remember exactly where I put them. I think maybe 9 or 8. I didn't think the Mavs were going to be that good. They definitely started off really strong. They've kind of fallen off a little. You can attribute that to injuries or whatever, but they're going to make the playoffs this year because Luka is sensational. For the front court, now this is where it gets a little controversial because, again, like I said, I don't have LeBron here. I don't have AD here. I actually put Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic as my front court starters. So Jokic, I don't think anyone's really pissed off that I put Jokic here. This is kind of a no-brainer to put him. I mean, a lot of people regard him as the best center in the NBA, and I'm not going to really argue that. Even though I'm an Embiid guy, I'm not even going to touch that right now. But Jokic, yeah, no-brainer. It comes down to Kawhi and KD, because some people might say LeBron should have one of these spots. I'm not bashing on LeBron, but he's missed more time than both these guys, and the Lakers are kind of a train wreck after losing the play-in. And it's not like the Suns are that great either, but KD is played more than LeBron, and his stats are better than LeBron. 29, 6, and 6. Kawhi, he has the Clippers as the 4 seed. This is the healthiest season we've gotten from Kawhi Leonard in years. Last year, I can't even remember what Kawhi played last year. Did he miss the entire regular season and then play playoffs? Or was that the year? I can't even keep it straight in my head. But Kawhi Leonard I haven't seen him play this many games in so long, and having the Clippers as a top 4 seed in this bloated Western Conference, I think is extremely impressive. So I gave him the nod. KD just for his individual numbers. And I think you could even argue it's a little impressive for the fact that he's kept the Suns kind of afloat, because you look at some other really good players around the league, most notably Steph Curry, who's on a team that's not very good. He individually is having a great year, but it's not he's not elevating them to have a chance at playoffs. Right now, the Warriors, if they don't make a drastic move at the deadline, they're not making the playoffs this year. The Suns are at least afloat. They're at least, I want to say, either at or right below 500. They're still the 8th seed. When they get to full health, I still have my concerns about the Suns roster. I don't like the fact that Devin Booker is your full-time point guard, and I do have a lot of questions about their bench, but there's one thing that'll keep them in any game, and that is Kevin Durant. So here is my bench for the West, and like I said earlier, this is just my ballot. If this were a prediction video of how this is actually going to play out, I think Steph and LeBron are actually going to start, just given the fan vote. But on my personal criteria, they're both on my bench. I'm going to tell you why. So for my backcourt, I have Steph Curry and Anthony Edwards. And I might be being a little what's the word, hypocritical here with Anthony Edwards, because when I was talking about Jason Tatum, I said anytime you're a 1 seed and you have a top 15 player, you should automatically have an all-star starter. Well, you can maybe argue that's the case with Anthony Edwards. Do you consider Anthony Edwards a top 15 player in the NBA, though? I probably quite wouldn't put him in there just yet, but he's definitely having a phenomenal year. And as great as he is, and the fact that he is on a 1 seed, I just don't think it's enough to overtake Luka and SGA. I mean, they're legitimately Luka and SGA are 2 of the 5 best players in the league right now. I mean, it is insane. SGA is becoming one of the best point guards in the league right now. I mean, you could argue the best. I mean, it just depends on, do you classify Luka as a point guard? But I think Luka, SGA, and Steph are all on the same level this year when it comes to best point guard in the NBA. So I just don't think there's enough room in the backcourt for the starters for Ant to get up there. But he still gets an all-star nod, still getting, back-to-back all-star appearances. He's been incredible. He's been like the reason why the Timberwolves have been so great. Like, being a great defense is one thing, and that's why a lot of people are pointing that to be the reason why the Timberwolves have been so good this year, and it definitely is a massive reason. But having a great defense alone isn't going to get you very far, and Anthony Edwards has been the engine of their offense. So leading a team in any conference, whether it's the East or the West, leading a team to be the 1 seed is extremely impressive, especially whenever I projected this team to be the 11th seed, and it might be my worst take of the year thus far for the NBA. I don't think you can knock me too much, though, because, look at how bad they were last year. The Cat and Gobert duo did not mesh at all. I know that they had a very limited sample size because of Towns' injury, but even in the games they played together, they didn't look like they didn't mesh at all. But they figured it out this year. Give them a lot of credit. Like I said, Ant has been a massive reason for their success, deserves the All-Star nod. And Steph, he's my favorite player in the NBA. So if I wanted to go full bias here, I could have thrown Steph as a starter, but I try to be unbiased here. Steph Curry should be an all-star, of course, because it's Steph frickin' Curry. I mean, he's still having a phenomenal individual year, but the Warriors are the 12th seed. I just cannot forgive that for Steph, even though he is my favorite. I can't overlook that. Again, another team that I should probably make its own separate video about is the Warriors and how treacherously bad they've been this year. Being a Warriors fan, I have a lot to say about that. This video has already been long enough, so I won't get into that now, but I still think Steph individually should be an all-star. Looking at the front court, we have Paul George. Awesome year for PG. Again, similar to Kawhi, this is one of his more healthy years in recent memory. When he plays, we all know he is one of the most skilled and smooth players in the NBA. He's just a joy to watch. So I'm glad he's healthy. And if the Clippers, I'm never going to say the Clippers are a favorite again, because the Clippers countless times have broken my heart. I bought into them a couple different times, and they've imploded all those times, whether it's to injury or it's locker room stuff, like what happened in the bubble. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself with the Clippers, but I'm just acknowledging it is fun to see Kawhi and PG playing again. And then we have the Lakers duo of LeBron and AD. I think LeBron will start just for the fan vote. I mean, he's the most popular athlete in the world. So, yeah, it's not too big of a surprise that he is going to start. But if it were my ballot, I would just, for the simple fact that the Lakers are the 10 seed. It has nothing to do individually with LeBron. It just has everything to do with the Lakers' team success. And same thing applies with AD. LeBron and AD, awesome, but outside of them, the team's really bad. I think they should fire Darvin Ham. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but another team that probably needs its own separate video. And we will make those type of videos after the Super Bowl. So I have those guys there on my bench. Let's take a quick look at my reserves and wrap this up. And for our last 2 spots in the Western Conference, we have De'Aaron Fox and Karl Anthony Towns. So De'Aaron Fox definitely deserves to be an all-star this year. 28 points per game, leading the Kings to the 5 seed. You can maybe honestly even argue he should be over Steph Curry and just put him on the bench, put Steph as a reserve. Maybe that's my Steph bias. I don't know. But De'Aaron Fox, yeah, he's having a lights-out year this year. And then Cat, 22-9 on a 1 seed. Like I said earlier about Boston, anytime you're the 1 seed, you should probably have at least 2 all-stars. So Cat gets the nod. You can maybe argue individually there's some other guys in the West that are having better seasons than Cat, like Devin Booker, but Cat has played more, and on the 1 seed, for me, that's just more of a compelling argument. So that's been my list. I did not intend for this video to be this long, but if you've listened to this channel, you know I can ramble about this shit for just way too long. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Please definitely leave your list. I want to see your all-star ballot in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe.